We have completed so far the various aspects of planning, like the concept of planning, the different characteristics, feature, nature, the importance, and as well as limitation of planning. In continuation of the chapter today, we shall be taking up or we shall be analyzing the various process of planning, or rather the steps that are involved in the planning process. We know that planning is one of the important managerial activity. It is basically visualizing an activity and deciding the necessary step that is to be taken so that the goals can be achieved. Now, these steps that is being planned, they may turn out to be a nightmare if it is not properly planned, if it is not properly visualized. We know planning is an activity that always takes into account the future uncertainties. Lot of predictions goes on or is taken up. Assumptions are being made about future events. Now, depending upon this, a manager has to take into account all this so that it can predict the successful or the success of a plan beforehand. It can lay the success of a plan beforehand. The success of a plan depends upon the various acts through which a plan moves on. It is not about the work that is done, but more precisely how accurate the estimates have been made, how logical the estimates have been made or they have been taken when the plans were formulated by the manager or the planner is the key to the success of a plan. So we conclude that a planning is a process of charting out or visualizing the future events, steps, and defining those steps that is to be taken so that objectives has to be achieved, and it is clear how those objectives would be achieved and when it would be achieved. So now let us move to the various steps of planning. The first steps of planning process is of setting an objectives. So setting of an objective. Now this is the steps where a plan begins. Planning begins on perceiving of an opportunity. When an organization visualizes that an opportunity exists, the opportunity gives or defines the objective in terms of the organization that it wants to achieve. The objective gives a direction to the organization that it seeks to achieve. So first of all, the first and foremost functions of planning is setting of the objectives. It is the objective that lit the spark in an organization and keeps the function of management moving. We can say that this objective should be defined for the entire organization, and then this objective should be communicated, or it should assimilated into all the departments, all the units, and all the employees, so that they should understand what is the contribution or effort that is expected for them to contribute to the planning process or for the success of the plan. So first and foremost objective of planning process is setting of planning objective. Now this planning objective, it should be clear for all the department, for all the units, and for all the employees. They must understand it in clear terms, what they are expected to do and how they are going to assist in achievement of that objective. Then the second process or second steps in planning is setting up or stating up the planning premises. Now what are these planning premises? To be very precise, planning premise refers to the systematic and logical estimate of future factor affecting planning. Now this systematic and logical estimate of future factor affecting planning. Now what are these logical estimates? Now since the word estimate is over here, estimate here means assumptions about or of or for a condition or an event of future that is going to affect planning. We know that the process of planning is based on estimates and predictions, and these estimates and predictions are, or they help, they guide a planner in the present to draw up the plan, but it is the plan that becomes a reality in the future. So the conjectures, the guesswork, the estimate, the assumptions that they make. Now let us take an example. Suppose we estimate that, or we set a target that the sales of our organization would be about 20% more than what we have achieved in the last year. Now we know that any changes in the consumer behavior, now these are some factors which are beyond our control. Now, so we are taking an assumption about some factors which may be either internal, they may be external, they may be controllable, or they may be uncontrollable. Like sales can also be affected by the requirement of raw material, machinery or labor. If we are not having a proper amount, proper resource of production, then our output would be affected and consequently sales would be affected. These are the internal factors. External factors like consumer behavior. We don't know that whether the first time might be due to some reason our product were accepted, but whether the customer or consumer will always continue to enjoy the patronage of our good, whether they will keep on purchasing our good, or whether can we be able to increase our sale, whether we will be able to create a new customer, a new market. So we make certain presumptions that what are the hindrances or factors that affect our sales target, our achieving sales target of excess of 20% than what we achieved. So those factors about which we make certain presumptions, they are known as planning premises. So a lot of assumptions are made. So we would take I have given you an example that customer preferences might go a change. We may not be able to increase our sales as we have estimated. Then change in government policy may also affect our objective of increasing the sales. So we have to make certain assumptions about futures events or conditions that are going to affect our planning. So in short, planning premises are the assumption of the condition and events that is going to affect our plan. We know that plan is basically the manifestation of what we think in present. Our past experiences guide us in drawing up a plan, but what we achieve is the present decision what we make while drawing up a plan that help us in achieving our objectives. So planning premises or forecasting of these future events or future uncertainties, it helps us. This brings us efficiency. The assumption, they bring efficiency. The plan tends to be more efficient. We know that future events are always uncertain. We cannot accurately make an assumptions about those future conditions. Whatever assumptions we are taking, we suppose that when we have set a target of 20% increase in sales, we have had that. Let us suppose that there would be change in customer preferences and they would affect 2% of our sales. Then government policy or taxes of the government might also reduce our earning as well as sales. So these two assumptions that we have taken, they may take place or they may not take place. So we are taking an assumptions, but the benefit of assumption is that it increases the efficiency of the plan. It increases the efficiency of the plan. These event or conditions therefore helps in a scientific drawing up of the plan. And when we conclude, when we draw these presumption or assumptions, a lot of experience, our scientific analysis, various models, various intuition and judgment. So while we take some assumptions, our past experience, then there are various models of planning, the various assumptions that we have taken. So those experiences, those analyses, those models, they help us to analyze the future properly and draw up these assumptions. It is not that we make an assumption out in the air. Our past guide us, but it is our plan. Our past guide us to draw a plan in present, but it is our plan that help us to make the future a reality. Means the goal to be achieved, the objective to be achieved. And therefore, this is one of the important juncture where much emphasis is placed during planning. So what we conclude is that drawing of a planning premises is an important juncture in the entire planning process. How good we are at stating our premises determine the efficiency and success of a plan. The more accurate we are in drawing up the planning premises, the more real will be our achievement in terms of objectives. So coming to the next, that is the third step, Now there are various steps or various ways of achieving the objective. We can simply resort to the routine way of performing a number of steps, or a manager can visualize some innovative ways of doing the work which can help him in achieving the objectives. So out of the number of ways of achieving or doing up the steps that is being decided in the plan for achieving of those objectives, we have to find out, first of all, we have to identify what are the various ways, what are the different ways through which we can proceed into the real plan or planning in action. So third step mainly concentrate on identifying the different courses of action. It may be a simple trite, T-R-I-T-E, trite way, or an innovative way of doing a work or achieving an objective. So third step is about identifying the alternative courses of action. Then the next step in planning is, of all the alternative that we have taken to be a feasible way of achieving our objective, we need to evaluate those objectives or those alternatives in terms of the cost, the benefit that we are deriving, our income, the risk involved or inherent in that. So what we do, we evaluate the alternative course of action in terms of the risk. The risk that is inherent in any plan or in any course of action has to be evaluated. And then this evaluation of the risk in the light of objective to be achieved, in the light of objective, that how this risk is going to affect our objective, to what extent. So we analyze the risk inherent in the light of the objectives that is involved, and then the benefit in terms of earning cost, and then this we take as earning cost, and overall management's vision. What is the vision of management? In the vision of management in adopting a particular course of action, whether they are in favor of it or not. They evaluate it in terms of the risk in light of the objective, how it is going to affect the objective, what are the earning probability, what is the cost or the benefit entails, the trade-off between earning and cost, that has to be taken up. So it is more of analyzing of the risk inherent and how it is going to affect the plan that is undertaken in the fourth steps of evaluating the alternative courses of action. We evaluate, and once we evaluate it, it gives us the various pros and cons of all the plans, the various alternative courses of action. So then second, what we do next, we select the alternative that suit us best. Selection of the alternative on the basis of the various pros and cons. This is pros and cons. We take into account the various benefit that we get or we derive from adopting a plan, and then we select an alternative. But it has to be over here that when we select an alternative, In most of the cases, it is the judgment of the manager, the subjectivity, means what the manager feels, the judgment, the experience, they play a major role in selection of an alternative. The pros and cons, they are evaluated in the light of the managerial experience, the manager philosophy, the orientations, what they think, their inclination, and then the plan which they think that this is the most suitable one, they select it. It has to be taken into account that these pros and cons, as we have already discussed in the last one, that the benefit in terms of cost, risk, then management visions, it is management visions, all this we evaluate it, and then we select the most feasible plan, means the plan that in our perception seems to be most appropriate and feasible, which can help us in achieving the objective set. That plan is selected. So the next, what follows selection of plan, is the implementation of the plan. The second is implementation of the plan. Now, when a plan is implemented, there are a number of sub-plans that are prepared. So basically it is concerned with putting a plan into action, putting a plan into action, putting a plan into action, into action. So various sub-plan are executed, various sub-plans are executed to help in the achievement of the main objective that is decided in the main plan. We know that if we have planned about increasing the production, then we must decide about the, like example is, suppose we take about production. So production is a production target. This is the main plan. Then the sub plan would be deciding about the material, the main machine, and overheads. That is, and overheads. So we have to make sub plan for their acquisition, for making these resources available on time, so that the activities that are already charted out do not suffer when the plan is rolled on, when the plan is put into action. So therefore, implementation of plan call for drawing up of several plans, sub-plans, assisting the implementation of the main plan and in the achievement of the objectives. And the final step is follow-up action. We follow-up action means, follow-up action is just like drawing a conclusion. Means we have to make sure that the plan that is put into action, whether this plan is moving as per the standard or not. Whether the plan is properly implemented, whether it is properly implemented, whether properly implemented, whether it is properly implemented, whether it is moving as per what we have thought, and if there are some hindrances, then we take necessary measures to remove those hindrances. So that is the meaning of following up. Basically, follow up means monitoring the plan. So it is monitoring. It is about monitoring. Ensure, this is basically taken to ensure achievement of objective. Achievement of objectives. So therefore, when a manager implement a plan, that is when a plan is put into action, which calls for drawing up a various sub-plan, like I have given you here an example. Suppose we have set a production target, and then to achieve that production target or the production department objectives, various sub-plans are drawn up, like the material required, the men, the machine, the overhead expenses that is required in taking up, fulfilling this production target. So last one is follow-up. So when the plan is put into action, the manager has to ensure that the plan that is implemented in the organization, it is moving up in a proper direction, or it is implemented properly. There is no bottlenecks or hindrances on its way in achieving the objective. So it ensures achievement of the objectives. Basically, to ensure this, a follow-up has to be taken up every now and then, whether the plan is moving up in the proper direction, whether it is implemented properly, or whether the plan is suffering from some inherent weaknesses, lacuna, or there are some bottlenecks in the effective implementation of the plan. Now here we conclude the planning process, or rather the steps involved in planning. So hope you would recollect the steps and you would draw up a planning process. Hope you understand it in a more better way. I expect to all of you to prepare your notes and refer the books. So keep learning.